Hey guys, welcome back to more HOA neighborhood stories. In this video, a ridiculous homeowner association ended up seizing my private land and then tries to charge me rent to use my own property. I am not even part of their neighborhood. Let's dive right into this XXL story. I'm currently in the midst of a horrible situation with an HOA, and I hope that getting some of it out there and off my chest will help me. So I live in South Africa, and I bought my home before an HOA was even formed here, meaning that my home was never under their rules or regulations. What I will say is that the HOA always came off as a little bit scary, and that relates to how the president runs it. Now, he on his own looks like a generic a-hole guy with money. But the people under him on the board, he wants to be as scary to people as possible. They walk around in fake uniforms claiming to be some kind of security, sometimes even claiming to be law enforcement. I cannot say right now for sure if they are armed, but at the very least they are giving off that impression. The good news for me is that I had zero interactions with them for over 2 years since my property had nothing to do with them. And even with that, I still found myself slightly intimidated when I would see them walking around to patrol the areas. I don't know if anybody was meant to feel safe from all of this, but I can for sure say that I didn't. Suddenly, I find myself interacting with them when the president shows up one day to have a chat with me, as he called it. He told me that my property was now part of the HOA and he had let me get away with violations until now as a courtesy to me. I tried to not show any fear and told him that my house actually predated the HOA and I never joined to begin with. So unless the city had changed the laws or something, I did not have anything to do with him. I also kindly asked him to please not come to my house again. The timing of our interaction could not have been worse because I was just set to go on a vacation for a couple of weeks. Or what the HOA president might call a golden opportunity for him. He was busy while I was away because when I got back, I could not access my property. A fence was surrounding it and the only way to get through was a gate. The biggest issue being that the gate was electronic and I couldn't get it open. The fence was also too high for me to jump or climb over it. He must have been watching because as soon as he saw me confused, he magically appeared to start to explain some things to me. He told me that I had several unpaid violations and because of that, the HOA has seized my land. None of the violations were real and I couldn't owe the HOA anything since, well, I was not part of it to begin with. He did not care though, and then just to add on top of that, he decided that he would make a deal with me. He told me that I could continue to live there if I would pay a monthly rent to the HOA. Otherwise, I would need to find somewhere else to live. Some might think now that was the time to call the police, but there was a flaw with that. He had legit looking paperwork for everything and I had nothing. On top of that, he's for sure the type that has paid off local police so he can get what he wants. I was furious and started screaming at him instead to remove the gate from my property. It did not faze him at all and instead he decided to pull out a radio and call for security. Who came was his version of security, the biggest guy he could probably find. He did not do anything but just towered over me and started to crack his knuckles. Clearly trying to intimidate me. After about 2 minutes, he finally spoke, telling me that he was going to charge me and have me arrested for trespassing if I did not calm down and listen to the HOA president. The man in question just told me that he could not remove the gate because it was the law and he was in his right to do it, and then handed me a book and told me to read up on the new HOA guidelines if I want to stay out of even more trouble. All of which were rules that he clearly made up just for me. As a renter, I had no plans to start paying him rent, by the way. For one, it was my house, and for second, my sister told me that if I was giving them rent money, it would look to a judge that I was actually in agreement with what they were doing. Instead, I managed to get over the fence and back into my house. After explaining things to my boss, I was allowed to work from home so I would not need to climb a ladder and hop a fence as often. I don't know how, but I don't think that he saw me doing this as a possibility because he started to get angry. I was getting fines daily in the mail for trespassing on my own property. He never called the cops because he probably didn't want to get attention if I didn't have to. Sometimes he would have his security there to stop me from getting back into my property and I would have to wait until they were gone to make my move. I know I was not doing anything wrong, but I still feel like I was doing something dirty or illegal. I was not gonna pay them the fines or the rent that they wanted and instead did try to go through proper legal channels. The main issue was that the HOA's fake paperwork looked real, and until things could get fully verified, then I could be the one that ended up getting in trouble despite not doing anything wrong. On top of all of that, the HOA seemed to think it was fun or something to constantly delay things, still watching me and subtly threatening me that I should be paying the daily fines. Despite all of this, I was still paying my bills because I knew that the HOA was full of BS, even though in their mind they were right and that they owned the property. That did not seem to matter because one day all of my utilities just died. I thought I was having a blackout, but my water was not working either. I tried calling my providers asking what happened, and they were told by the owners to shut it all down because the house was being torn down. He used the damn fake paperwork to get my utilities shut off. And because of what he claimed, I could not get them turned back on until a notice of completed construction was turned in or some kind of papers that I did not have. I tried to explain to them, but they would not believe a word that I said. He was treating me like a dirty squatter and that he was trying to make me uncomfortable so I would leave. I knew I should have kept my cool, but I couldn't, and instead I may have ended up confronting and yelling at him. He gave me a suggestion that maybe I should move out before things get even worse for me. I could not imagine what could be worse, but I refused to leave. Without power though, it was hard and I was probably pretending to be in that house more than I actually was for a few weeks. I can live without a lot of things, but I need running water and I need electricity to work from home. My boss is great, but if I'm not doing work at all, then I would obviously get fired. So I hired a lawyer and basically dumped everything I had to him needing help. After a long talk, we decided that trying to get him in court was gonna take forever because he would keep delaying things. Instead, he was filing for a type of investigation that would dive into the HOA finances. I did not know how it related, but he explained that if they had legally annexed my land, there would be proof in the finances. I won't lie and pretend that I understand law. I basically let my lawyer do everything and tried to understand what he was talking about the best I could. I know that the investigation my lawyer did not only found the proof about my house, but also that HOA funds seem to be getting used in unusual ways. Large amounts being taken out with no projects assigned to it, all different signs that point to the president taking the money for himself, making the rich man even richer. For my house, he filed a legal claim against the HOA. The courts approved it and sent the HOA a cease and desist order for what they were doing to me. They were forced to remove the fence and gate and to stop blocking access to my home. It should have felt like a win for me, but I just have a really bad feeling about things to potentially come in the future. He did not seem upset or anything about the court order. He seemed to stay calm and keep giving me this look that I cannot place but don't like. I know that he's up to something, but I don't know what. Frankly though, I'm exhausted and maybe I'm just seeing things that are not really there. Like a few days ago, a bunch of construction cones started being placed on some roads. It could have nothing to do with him, but I just have this sick feeling that it's connected to him. I swear, he hired people to keep an eye on me because there are always cars parked outside my house. A guy like him does not just give up, and I have a feeling that the people watching me and the traffic cones have a connection. I hope that I'm just being paranoid, but I cannot shake the feeling. Maybe you guys can tell me if I'm wrong or not. And yeah guys, what would you say about this so far? Do you think OP is being paranoid or is he in the right? Do you think something is wrong here? I would definitely say that something is not right. This HOA is really more like a mafia rather than a real legitimate organization. Either way, a commenter on Reddit said, "I don't think you're being paranoid. If a guy like that is not angry, then he is not done yet. Make sure to keep your own eye out on him and his people too." Then OP responded, "Thanks, I'm gonna try and get photos of the guy in the car, maybe in case I need to prove that he is having me followed." Comment number 2, good luck with everything. I'd be scared out of my mind if I was in your position. Getting a lawyer was a good move. OP responded, "Trust me, I'm scared. After making the post, things have been getting even weirder with the people watching me and the looks he's been giving me." Comment number 3, I don't know about where you live, but here in the United States, only the city can tear up the roads. Maybe try calling and asking about planned road work. OP responded, "I took your advice and called. The city told me that there's no planned road work. Nothing has been dug up yet, though I will just keep waiting to see what happens." And yeah guys, now we got an update to the story, which hopefully provides some closure on what actually happened here. So for anybody that read my first post, you know that at the end I was feeling a little bit paranoid that the HOA was watching me and planning something. It turns out that I was right. After seeing all the construction cones, a commenter told me to call the city and ask about road work, so I did, and none of it was planned. That made what the HOA was doing even shadier in my mind. I also know that I didn't talk much about the fake rules that the HOA had given me. There were rules and they're clearly meant for me as a renter, like they wanted, but that was not the only thing in there. They had made a ton of other rules that they were forcing actual HOA members to follow. He seemed to want to control every single aspect of people's lives and gain as much control as possible. He had rules in there about length of time people were allowed to speak to each other while outside of their homes, having his fake security officers telling people to break it up and get on with their day. I have a theory, it was that so people could not talk bad about him in public and about how bad the rules were. There was a rule in there legit about not being allowed to associate with non-HOA members that lived in the neighborhood, basically meaning me. He had a rule that people were not allowed to speak to me, and the fines detailed in these rules made zero sense as well. For an example, if somebody was to speak to me, they would get a $50 fine. Then if they did it again, the fine would be raised to $500. This man thought that he was untouchable and nothing mattered. While he did listen to the court about allowing me back into my home, he was not gonna listen to their legal warnings to leave me alone. I was finally back to living my life as it was before he shoved his way into it before he decided to strike again. I usually wake up around 7 AM to get ready for work, and on this particular day I was woken up at 6 AM by the sound of jackhammers. They did not sound like they were in the distance at all, and I looked outside thinking my neighbor was having something done. But no, I looked to see my entire driveway being demolished. I must have slept through some of the work because it was totally torn up at this point. I was not gonna be able to get my car out of the garage and get back to work. Work that I finally ended up stopping working remotely from thinking I would be able to. The HOA president was outside watching the entire thing, so I went outside in my undershirt to yell my head off at him. I was screaming that he had no right to do this to my property and to get the hell out and take all of his workers with him. He did not leave and instead informed me that legally, the HOA had the right to use HOA funds for community beautification, and repaving my driveway fell under that. Out of context, it sounded like he was doing me a favor, driveway repavement, and I wouldn't have to pay a penny. Of course I knew this was not going to be the case. He either had no intention of finishing it or was going to use it as a way to somehow force me to pay and be a part of his HOA. You can take all your guesses on which in the comments if you want. That was when he dropped the biggest threat to me of all. He told me that my house had to look nice because my house was gonna be auctioned off due to unpaid fees. Fees that I would like to remind everybody did not matter since I was not a member of this HOA and he had no right to try and charge me. The fees were in the thousands because he was adding that fake rent thing for the days I was squatting supposedly in my own house. I knew that I had to do something big too if I wanted all of this to stop. I was now determined to take down the HOA and this man at any cost. I lost this battle in the moment, but I was gonna win the war, even if it killed me. I already had information about the HOA and their shady financial records from my lawyer, showing that they were using funds illegally. Not only was the president taking money for himself, but there was proof that HOA funds were going into the stock market, the JSE stock exchange, which is basically him just gambling people's money away in hopes that it causes him to get more money. And I think, guys, the JSE Stock Exchange is the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, just for context, because the story happened in South Africa as mentioned in the beginning, it seems. So, something that is illegal for an HOA to do down here. I went to an HOA meeting and confronted the board with all the evidence I had about their shady financial dealings. A few other people were at the meeting, but I guess most people don't really bother to show up at these kinds of things. I thought that he would be intimidated or agree to back off, but instead, he just laughed at me. Nothing seemed to shake this guy. He told me that the HOA had a lawyer on retainer to deal with any problems they came across, and that their lawyer was more expensive than any lawyer I could get, and he would get all of his stuff buried. He was so calm looking at me that I just wanted to smack him in the face. He told me that there was no way that I could win against him in court, that my evidence was not gonna mean anything, and then for the first time he was totally honest with me about his intentions. He told me that he wanted my property so that he could make the new owners part of the HOA. He was not gonna stop and wanted to make that perfectly clear to me, so I knew that I had to step up my game. On the downside, he was now stepping his up as well. Aside from my driveway still being rubble, he had hired fake debt collectors to show up at my work and harass me, as well as my co-workers, telling everybody that I was in huge debt and irresponsible with money, so to make sure not to lend me anything. He embarrassed the hell out of me. I found my own house online being listed for sale as a community-owned rental property. I could not do much of anything aside from waiting for my lawyer to help stop every attack. He got my house unlisted, but also found out something even more shady that the HOA was doing. And just so this is clear, I already had a lawsuit against them going, but they kept forcing delays with their fancy lawyer, and court takes time. So basically, my lawyer found out that the HOA was annexing other homes aside from mine. And successfully did so. The only thing we had in common was that we were the people, not part of the HOA. And they annexed the homes in order to collect HOA dues that they were not entitled to get in the first place. I think the HOA lawyer finally caught wind of what mine was doing because they started shredding documents. But it was too late for that because I probably had way more than I needed to get them in trouble. A good lawyer can do a lot, but there was no way that he could get the president away with clear theft and corruption. I was also not the only homeowner who was currently fighting with the HOA. I found out every current homeowner not part of the HOA and then contacted them. All of them told me that they were facing similar harassment and did not know what to do. There is power in numbers, so I got them on board to help file the biggest lawsuit against the HOA and the president. That worked well enough to get a response where the HOA funds were frozen as well and the president's personal funds. Me and the other affected homeowners decided to hold a press conference and go public with everything that we had been facing. I got to tell my entire story to a large audience, and that all seemed to be on my side. From them trying to lock me out of my house to the fact that I felt scared, stalked and threatened. An HOA should be meant to help protect people, not making a profit and use intimidation to get what they wanted. The other people also told their stories of being watched and told that they would not be able to do anything aside from lose their homes. We exposed the fact that the HOA was using fake officers pretending they were real security as well, officers that were now dealing with horrible backlash from the community. Now that everybody knew about him stealing money, the people who actually were members and paid dues were flocking and demanding their money back. The HOA's officers needing to deal with it because the president seemed to go into almost hiding. He knew that people wanted to probably attack him for the crap he'd been pulling. Court finally happened with everything coming to light and him just having one chance to pull off some redemption. His only excuse was that the stuff should not be able to be used against him because it was not all gotten under proper channels, meaning that my lawyer found the fraud and did not tell him about it. It did not go well for him, and the HOA president was arrested on top of various charges. Harassment, slander, theft, misuse of funds, I could go on and on. He was going to prison, but that was not the end of things for him or the HOA. They owed people money, and a ton of it. Both people who had to get their dues back due to the HOA breaking the laws about what they can do, and to people like me who got harassed. I needed money back for the property damage and for emotional damages from them trying to steal my land. In the end, the HOA and the president personally had to pay a few $1,000,000. Not all of it went to me, of course, so I was now not a rich millionaire or something, but the HOA president had all his assets seized and liquidated in order to get it full. The HOA was broke now, but that was not a problem for people because nobody wanted it anymore. It was dissolved and all records of the homes being part of it were removed. People also started a petition that I signed not allowing a new HOA to form. There were still some people thinking that the HOA was in the right and a new one should be formed. And yeah guys, those people are clearly not the brightest light bulbs in the cabinet. Anyway, nobody was willing to try and make that mistake again. I know that now I have my home and peace again, but it is hard to relax. After all this time, I still find myself checking for a car to see if I'm still being watched. It is over, but some damage has clearly been done to me. Some of my coworkers still think badly of me due to these fake debt collectors. At least now I don't have to worry about him because I probably will never see this guy again. So much for his fancy lawyer helping him, because now he's just broke and in jail. I hope that's the only experience I ever have with an HOA. It feels like enough for several lifetimes for me. And of course, before we end the video and to have an excuse to post cat videos, we will read another story from r/petty revenge that you don't want to miss, because it is super satisfying. It is titled "Driver Paid Tolls in Pennies, I Made Them Wait While I Counted." So I was working for the toll authority before they got rid of them for Easy Pass. Toll or toll, I always forget. Anyway, this guy comes through with a toll of about $5. He raised his cupped hands up towards me, full of pennies and nickels. Once I took them, he said, "Here you go, enjoy counting," while laughing to himself. So I told him, "Well, enjoy waiting right there until I am done counting, otherwise I will call the state troopers to bring you back." He pouted the entire time while I stacked pennies and accidentally knocked them over, having to start again a couple times. He was actually over by 20 cents. I gave it back to him and said, "Here's your change. Aren't you glad you waited?" And by the way, for those worried about the people behind this guy, it was a slow day. No one was waiting but him. And yeah guys, thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe and I will see you again tomorrow.